Have you ever stopped to wonder if the universe has a memory? We often go through our days thinking that our small choices, the little corners we cut or the tiny secrets we keep, simply vanish into the air. We believe that if no one is looking, our actions don't carry a cost. But the truth is much deeper than that. Life is like a giant, invisible mirror. It doesn't just show us who we are. It reflects back exactly what we put into it. Every act of kindness and every moment of greed is recorded on a scale that we cannot see with our eyes. Eventually, that scale always finds its balance. Many people try to be clever by taking more than they give, thinking they are winning a game that no one else understands. But life always gets the final word, because the law of return is as real as the gravity that keeps our feet on the ground. Today, I want to take you to a quiet, beautiful town in the heart of the American countryside. It is a place where the air smells like pine trees and the people all know each other's names. In this town, a simple trade between a shopkeeper and a beekeeper revealed a truth so powerful that it changed the way everyone lived. This story is a reminder that you can never truly cheat your neighbor without cheating your own soul first. If you listen closely until the very end, you might realize that the way you treat others today is actually the way the world will treat you tomorrow. In this peaceful town, there was a man named Arthur who owned the most popular general store on Main Street. Arthur was a man who took great pride in his appearance. Every morning, he put on a crisp shirt and a clean apron, making sure his hair was perfectly combed before he opened his doors. He was a fast talker and always had a wide, bright smile for every customer who walked in. To the neighbors, Arthur seemed like a pillar of the community. He was the man who provided the flour for their bread, the seeds for their gardens, and the coffee for their breakfast. People trusted him because his family had owned that store for a very long time. However, beneath that friendly smile and the polite, "Good morning," Arthur had a secret. He was a man driven by a hunger for more. He didn't just want to be a successful shopkeeper. He wanted to be the richest man in the county. He began to think that honesty was a slow path to wealth. Slowly, he started making small changes. He would shave a tiny bit off the top of a grain bag or adjust his old metal scale just enough so that a customer received a little less than they paid for. "It's just a few pennies," he would tell himself. "No one will ever notice, and that makes me a little extra every day." He felt very clever, believing he was outsmarting everyone while they thanked him for his service. On the edge of the town, where the forest begins, lived a man named Samuel. Samuel was the opposite of Arthur in almost every way. He was a quiet man with rough hands and a face lined by many years of working under the sun. Samuel was a beekeeper. He lived in a small, humble wooden house with his wife, Martha. They didn't have much money, but they had a garden full of flowers and hundreds of beehives that produced the sweetest, most golden honey in the entire region. Everyone said that Samuel's honey tasted like sunshine in a jar. Every week, Samuel would make the long walk from his house to Arthur's store. He would carry a large, heavy stone jar filled with fresh honey. In exchange for this honey, Arthur would give Samuel a large bag of premium coffee beans. This was their arrangement for many years. It was a simple trade built on a handshake and a long history of friendship. Neither man ever argued about the price or the weight. Samuel would place his jar on the counter. Arthur would hand over the bag of coffee, and they would share a few words about the weather before Samuel walked back home. It was a routine as steady as the rising sun. It is like a small fire that, if left unchecked, eventually burns down the whole house. One morning, Arthur woke up with a dark thought in his mind. He looked at the heavy jar of honey Samuel had delivered the day before and felt a surge of suspicion. "That's Samuel," Arthur whispered to himself as he paced the wooden floors of his shop. "He's a quiet one. People who don't talk much are usually hiding something. I bet he's been giving me less honey than we agreed on. He probably thinks I'm too busy to check." Arthur's own dishonesty made him unable to trust anyone else. He decided to do something he had never done in all those years. He took Samuel's jar of honey and placed it on his most accurate, modern scale in the back room. His eyes grew wide with a mixture of shock and fake anger. The scale showed that the honey was significantly lighter than it was supposed to be. It wasn't a full measure. Arthur felt a rush of heat in his chest. "I knew it," he shouted to the empty room. "That old man has been stealing from me for years. He's been taking my expensive coffee and giving me half-empty jars of honey." Arthur didn't stop to think. He didn't ask himself if there could be a mistake. He wanted to make an example of Samuel. He wanted everyone to see that he, Arthur, was the victim of a dishonest farmer. He marched straight to the town square and found the mayor, a wise man named Mr. Henderson. Arthur demanded a public hearing. He wanted Samuel to be shamed in front of the whole town. Word spread quickly through the quiet streets. By the afternoon, a large crowd had gathered under the big oak tree in the center of town. Everyone was whispering. They couldn't believe that kind old Samuel could be a thief. When Samuel arrived, he looked confused and tired. He was still wearing his work clothes, and there was a bit of beeswax on his sleeve. He stood quietly, his head slightly bowed, as Arthur stood up and began to yell his accusations. Arthur pointed his finger and called Samuel a liar and a cheat. He told the crowd how he had been robbed of his profits and how Samuel had betrayed their friendship for years. Arthur's voice was loud and full of righteous anger, while Samuel remained as still as a statue. Finally, Mayor Henderson raised his hand for silence. The air was thick with tension. The mayor looked at the beekeeper and said, "Samuel, you have heard what Arthur has said. He claims your honey jars are not as heavy as they should be. He says you have been cheating him. What is your response?" Samuel looked up slowly. His eyes weren't angry. They were filled with a deep, quiet sadness. He looked at Arthur, then at the neighbors he had known his whole life. "Mr. Mayor," Samuel said softly, his voice barely a whisper, but reaching every ear in the square. "I am a simple man. I spend my days with the bees and my nights with my books. I don't have much money, and I certainly don't own one of those fancy shiny scales that Arthur has in his shop. I never felt I needed one." A murmur went through the crowd. Arthur let out a loud, mocking laugh. "Then how do you measure the honey you sell?" Arthur demanded, stepping forward with a smirk. "Do you just guess? Is that your excuse directly toward Arthur?" "Every week, Arthur, I come to your store and I buy a large bag of coffee beans from you. I take that bag home, and it is the most precious thing in my kitchen. Since I don't have a metal weight for my old wooden balance scale at home, I use your bag of coffee as the measure. I put your coffee on one side of the scale, and I pour my honey into the jar on the other side until the two sides are perfectly even. Whatever weight of coffee you give to me is exactly the weight of honey I give back to you." A sudden, heavy silence fell over the town square. It was so quiet you could hear the wind rustling the leaves of the oak tree. Arthur's face went from bright red to a ghostly, pale white. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His hands began to shake. The truth hit the crowd like a bolt of lightning. The reason the honey was light was that Arthur had been bought Zen the coffee beans for years. He had been giving Samuel less coffee to save a few coins, and in his honesty, Samuel had simply been reflecting that weight back to him. Arthur had been cheating himself the entire time. Mayor Henderson stood up, his face stern and disappointed. He looked at Arthur, who was now staring at the ground, unable to look anyone in the eye. "Arthur," the mayor said, his voice echoing through the square, "you tried to build a trap for an honest man, but you only succeeded in falling into the pit you dug yourself. You thought you were being clever by taking a little here and a little there. But you forgot that the world has a way of returning what we give. By giving Samuel less, you received less. Your own dishonesty has come home to roost." The people of the town didn't cheer or shout. They simply looked at Arthur with a mixture of pity and loss of respect. That afternoon, Arthur's reputation, which had taken 3 generations to build, vanished in a single moment. He was ordered to provide Samuel with all the missing coffee from over the years, and he had to pay a heavy fine to the town. But the real punishment was the shame. No one looked at Arthur the same way again. People stopped coming to his store for advice or a friendly chat. He had lost the one thing that money cannot buy, the trust of his neighbors. Samuel, on the other hand, went back to his hives. He continued to be the same quiet, honest man he had always been, but now the whole town knew the true depth that our lives are a perfect reflection of our actions. We often think we can get away with small deceits, but the universe keeps its own books, and the math is always correct. Whether we are dealing with money, friendship, or love, we get back exactly what we put out. If you give honesty, you will find yourself surrounded by truth. If you give kindness, you will find grace when you need it most. But if you choose to cheat or take shortcuts at the expense of others, do not be surprised when your own life feels empty and short of measure. True success is not found in how much you can take, but in how much you can give. And Samuel is one that stays with us long after the story ends. It reminds us that integrity isn't just a word, it is the foundation of a happy life. In our modern world, it is easy to feel like the fast way or the sneaky way is the path to winning. We see people cutting corners and think we should do the same. But remember, the scales of life are always balancing. What you do in the dark will eventually come to light, and the weight you give to the world will always return to your own door. Let this story encourage you to be the person who gives a full measure of kindness, honesty, and hard work, even when you think no one is watching. Because in the end, you aren't just treating others, you're shaping the life you have to live in. If you found value in this lesson today, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share these tales to help us all grow a little wiser and a little kinder every day. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that could change your perspective. Until next time, stay honest, stay humble, And remember that the universe is always returning your own reflection.